During World War II, hundreds of top-secret black projects were created to try and help the Allies and the Axis win the war. Today we look at 50 of them, including the fascinating Panjandrum to one of the largest weapons ever created, the Gustaf railway gun. Make sure to comment down below if you think I missed anything and throw a like on the video if you enjoy these long-form videos. Number 50, the German V3 Supergun. Also known as the Vengeance Weapon 3, this massive weapon was a unique World War II artillery project developed by Nazi Germany. Unlike conventional artillery, the V3 was designed to be a high-pressure, multi-charge gun intended to bombard targets from a considerable distance. The barrel was extremely long, approximately 130 meters, to accommodate the multiple charges as this design aimed to achieve high muzzle velocities. The V3 fired a long fin-stabilized shell and the goal was to achieve a range of about 165 kilometers. The V3 was intended to bombard London from its positions in France, however the project faced numerous technical difficulties, including the precision required for the sequential firing of the charges. The complex firing mechanism and the alignment of the charges proved difficult to perfect, and the gun site was heavily bombed by the Allies in 1944, causing significant damage to the infrastructure. Only a few test shots were ever fired, yet this mega project illustrated the extremes to which Nazi Germany was willing to go in its quest for long-range bombardment capabilities. While the V3 itself was not successful, its concept of multi-charge propulsion has influenced modern artillery and various space launch technologies. The project, codenamed London Gun, eventually failed, and many parts of the device were captured by the Allies and later scrapped in 1948. Number 49, the Goliath Demolition Vehicle. Used by the German Wehrmacht during World War II, this remote-controlled demolition vehicle was officially known as the Goliath Tracked Mine. First introduced in 1942, the Goliath was produced by the Borgward Company, with primary objectives including demolition operations such as destroying tanks, disrupting infantry formations, and demolishing structures and fortifications. Lightly armoured with steel plating to protect against small arms fire and shrapnel, the Goliaths could carry between 60 to 100 kilograms of high explosives. Powered by electric motors and equipped with two 12-volt batteries, they were operated via a remote control, connected by a 3-wire cable that extended up to 650 meters. The Goliath saw action on both the eastern and western fronts and was used during key operations, including the Warsaw Uprising, the Italian campaign, and the D-Day Normandy landings. However, its slow speed, vulnerability to small arms fire, and limited range of control often rendered it less effective than intended, and the cables controlling it could also be severed. The Goliath is considered one of the early predecessors of modern unmanned ground vehicles and helped to advance technology for many of today's remote-controlled demolition systems. Number 48, the Rochling Shells. Developed by German engineer August Coenders during World War II, these bunker-busting artillery shells were designed with the intent of enhancing the penetration capabilities of artillery shells against heavily fortified targets. Their primary goal was to create a projectile capable of penetrating reinforced concrete fortifications, such as bunkers and fortresses, which were common defensive structures during the war. Characterized by their elongated aerodynamic shape, designed to reduce air resistance and increase velocity, they were made from high-quality steel to withstand the stress of high-speed impact. Many of these projectiles had fins or stabilizing tails to ensure they maintained a stable trajectory during flight, improving accuracy and penetration. Rochling shells came in various calibers and sizes, tailored to fit different artillery pieces, and they were notably heavier and longer than conventional shells. These shells were primarily used in specialized artillery operations where breaching heavy fortifications was required. Rochling shells were typically fired from heavy artillery pieces such as the 28cm K5 railway gun, which could generate the necessary muzzle velocity to maximize the shell's penetrating power. Despite their effectiveness, the specialized nature of Rochling shells limited their widespread use, but they have contributed to the development of future armor-piercing and bunker-busting munitions in today's world. Number 47, the heavy Luftwaffe bombers. Designed for long-range strategic bombing missions targeting enemy infrastructure, industrial sites and cities, these heavily adapted bombers were needed for carrying large bomb loads over long distances. One of these bombers, the Junkers Ju-290, was initially adapted for long-range reconnaissance and maritime patrol, later converted for heavy bombing missions. With a maximum speed of around 440 km per hour and a range of up to 6,150 km, it featured 4 BMW 801D radial engines and could carry a crew of up to 11. The Dornier Du 217, another medium to heavy bomber, was also used for reconnaissance and night fighting, carrying up to 4,000 kilograms of bombs or guided missiles. Heavy bombers had limited development and deployment as Germany's limited industrial capacity and resources were concentrated mainly on fighter production, and significant technical challenges with engine reliability were present. Number 46, the V1 flying bomb. Known as the Buzz Bomb or Doodlebug, this early cruise missile was one of the first of the so-called Vengeance weapons. First used operationally in 1944, the V1 was developed by the German Luftwaffe and designed by the Fieseler Company. This long-range unmanned aerial vehicle was intended for strategic bombing of enemy cities and infrastructure and weighed approximately 2,150 kilograms. The onboard pulse jet engine produced a distinctive buzzing sound, leading to the weapon's nickname, and could travel at around 640 km per hour. With a range of 250 km, distance was regulated by a mechanical odometer connected to an airlog device. V1s were launched from fixed sites in German-occupied territories, mainly in northern France and the Netherlands, with inclined ramps using a steam catapult system. Primarily aimed at London, later targets included other cities in southern England and eventually Antwerp and Brussels in Belgium. The first V1 attack on London occurred on June 13, 1944, with over 9,000 launched at England and around 2,419 reaching London, killing approximately 6,184 people and injuring many more. Considered to be a precursor to modern cruise missiles, V1 development represented a significant step in the evolution of guided missile technology. Number 45, the Krasnodar SKH-2 Challenger. Developed in the early 1930s, this experimental heavy glider was developed by the Soviet Union's Krasnodar Aviation Group under the leadership of Oleg Antonov. Antonov would later become one of the most famous Soviet aircraft designers, and the Challenger was designed primarily as an agricultural glider, intended for aerial seeding and crop dusting. The glider had a wooden frame covered with fabric, which was typical for aircraft of that era, and this construction method made it lightweight and relatively easy to produce. Carrying up to 1,500 kilograms of cargo, including seeds, fertilizers, or other agricultural materials, the glider was designed for slow and stable flight. Unfortunately, limited range restricted its operational flexibility, and thanks to powered agricultural aircraft, which were designed later, this technology became obsolete. Number 44, the Messerschmitt 163 Comet. Holding the distinction of being the only operational rocket-powered fighter aircraft in history, the Messerschmitt Me 163 Comet had its first flight on September 1, 1941. Primarily used by the Luftwaffe in a defensive role, its main operational goal, Me 163, was to intercept high-altitude Allied bombers. It was launched using a jettisonable takeoff dolly and would land on a retractable skid and had impressive speed and climb rates due to its rocket engine. Despite its advanced design and speed, the Me 163 had limited success in combat, and its high speed made aiming difficult with the short flight duration, limiting its operational range and effectiveness. The Me 163's volatile rocket fuel was dangerous, often resulting in accidents during takeoff and landing, yet today it remains one of the reasons why more advanced fighter aircraft exist. Number 43, the Panjandrum. One of the strangest devices ever designed during World War II, this massive rocket-propelled explosive-laden cart was designed by the British military. Part of a series of experimental weapons designed for use in the D-Day landings, it was conceived by the British Admiralty's Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development. Its main purpose was to breach the Atlantic Wall, specifically the heavy fortifications on the beaches of Nazi-occupied Europe. Consisting of two large wooden wheels connected by an axle with a central drum, the drum was packed with explosives and was powered by multiple solid-fuel cordite rockets attached to the wheels. Tests of the device were conducted on the beaches of Devon, England. However, it was plagued by significant issues during its trials. The tests revealed that the Panjandrum was highly unstable and unpredictable, often posing a danger to the operators and spectators. Due to its poor performance and inherent dangers, the Panjandrum project was ultimately abandoned and never saw combat. Number 42, the bouncing bomb. Designed to bounce over water, evade torpedo nets, and sink against the dam it was set to destroy, the bomb was also set to detonate at a predetermined depth. The bomb was designed to destroy dams in Germany's Ruhr Valley and was invented by English engineer and inventor Barnes Wallis. Prior to release, the bomb was spun backwards to ensure it bounced over the water and hit the target correctly, and several were used in this famous raid on May 16-17, 1943 by the Royal Air Force's 617 Squadron. Key features included backspin 2, help to control the bomb's trajectory, and a detonator that worked underwater, allowing for maximum damage against the structure of well-built dams. The raid successfully breached the Möhne and Edersee dams, causing significant flooding and disruption to German industry. The bouncing bomb was one of the first precision weapons of its time, and the raid remains one of the most famous of the war. Number 41, the Schwerwer Gustav Railway Gun. One of the largest and most powerful artillery pieces ever constructed, the main purpose of this invention was to penetrate the heavily fortified defences of the French Maginot Line. Construction began in 1937 thanks to Krupp, a major German industrial conglomerate, and was completed by 1941. The gun fired massive high-explosive shells weighing 7 tons and 4.8 tons for its custom armour-piercing shells. Requiring a crew of around 250 men to operate, the gun had a maximum range of 39 kilometres and took thousands of personnel to logistically operate. Also deployed during the siege of Sevastopol in 1942, the gun fired 48 rounds during the siege, causing significant destruction to Soviet defences. 2 parallel railway tracks were required for transport and assembly, as well as cranes and other heavy equipment, making the gun a task to move in wartime conditions. While the Gustav was a formidable weapon, its extraordinary size and weight of 1,350 tons made it an exceptional challenge to use during the war. Number 40, the Maus tank. One of the heaviest tanks ever built during World War II, the Maus was initially named Porsche Typ 205, and the project began in 1942 under the direction of Ferdinand Porsche. The goal was to create an indestructible super heavy tank that could breach any enemy fortifications and withstand any anti-tank weaponry brought forward by the Allied powers. Weighing approximately 188 metric tons, the frontal armour was 204 mm thick and could protect against all contemporary anti-tank weapons. It also featured the 128mm KWK-44L 55 gun, one of the most powerful tank guns of its time, and was operated by 6 members: the commander, gunner, loader, driver, radio operator and mechanic. Maximum road speeds came in at about 13 kilometers per hour, yet the tank was limited by its massive weight and engine power. The tanks were found to have a severe vulnerability to air attacks and never entered mass production due to the immense cost and complexity of constructing. The tanks never saw active combat but represented the pinnacle of tank armour and firepower at the time. Number 39, the Krummlauf gun. Designed as a unique attachment for the STG-44 assault rifle, this invention could have been a game-changer for the German war effort. Designed to help German troops fire round corners without exposing them to direct enemy fire, development began in the early 1940s. 2 types of barrel were designed, one for infantry use that featured a 30-degree curve, and one for use in tanks and armoured vehicles that had a 90-degree curve. The attachment included included a periscope sight to allow the shooter to aim accurately while remaining concealed. The practicality of the gun was somewhat limited, and the extreme curvature caused rapid wear and tear on the barrel and led to reduced accuracy of the weapon being fired. The high degree of bending often resulted in deformed bullets, which further reduced accuracy and could cause jams. The design of the Krumlov has led to more advanced corner shooting weapons, such as the corner shot, with its pivoting stock and camera system. Number 38, the Manhattan Project. Initiated in 1939, this huge project was a response to fears that Nazi Germany was working on a nuclear weapon and was mainly aimed at creating atomic fission. Key research and production facilities were established across the United States, including Los Alamos, New Mexico, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington. At Los Alamos, the theoretical aspects of the project were turned into reality, culminating in the successful test of an atomic bomb on July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert, known as the Trinity Test. The project reached its climax with the bombing of Hiroshima, and Nagasaki in August 1945, which led to Japan's surrender and the end of World War II. The project eventually ushered in today's nuclear age and profoundly impacted global politics, warfare, and international relations around the world. Number 37, the Covenanter. Developed in the late 1930s as part of a series of British cruiser tanks, the Covenanter design aimed to create a fast and agile tank for reconnaissance and rapid movement. Initially armed with a 2-pounder gun and a coaxial 7.92mm Baser machine gun, later models were equipped with a 3-inch howitzer. The armour thickness varied, with a maximum of 40mm, and was considered adequate for a cruiser tank of its time, but was insufficient against the more heavily armed and armoured German tanks encountered later in the war. Designed to be fast with a top speed of around 30 miles per hour, its actual performance was often hindered by mechanical issues. The tank faced significant design challenges, particularly with its cooling system, and the low profile of the tank and the placement of the radiator in the front made it prone to overheating. Often remembered as a problematic design, approximately 1,700 Covenanters were built, but many were relegated to secondary roles or used as sources of spare parts for other tanks. Number 36, the TOG-2 tank. Developed by a group of tank designers that was led by Sir Albert Stern and referred to as the Old Gang, these long boxy hull tanks with tracks running the entire length were intended for trench warfare. Similar in design to the TOG-1, which was used in WW1, the TOG-2 is remembered for its unique appearance and historical significance. Equipped with a QF 17-pounder gun, the TOG-2s had a longer hull, better armour, and an upgraded suspension system, but proved too slow and cumbersome for the evolving nature of the war. The TOG-2 contributed enormously to British tank design, but never saw active military service. Today, TOG tanks are now part of military history and can be seen in museums such as the Tank Museum in Bovington, UK. Number 35, the V2 rocket. One of the more famous inventions of WW2, the V2 holds the distinction of being the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. Conceived by German engineer Werner von Braun and his team at the Peenemünde Army Research Centre, the V2 rocket represented a revolutionary leap in technology. Standing 14 metres tall and weighing nearly 13 metric tons, the rocket was powered by a liquid propellant engine fueled by ethanol and liquid oxygen. Reaching altitudes of 80 kilometers and travelling at speeds exceeding 5,760 kilometers per hour, the rocket was nearly impossible to intercept with the technology of the time. The V2 was first successfully launched on October 3, 1942, and it entered operational use in September 1944. The weapon was intended to strike fear and cause destruction in Allied cities, primarily targeting London and Antwerp. Europe. Over 3,000 V-2 rockets were launched during the war, resulting in significant casualties and damage. Yet, despite its devastating impact, the V-2's strategic effectiveness was limited due to its inaccuracy and the high cost of production. After the war, both the United States and the Soviet Union captured V-2 technology and personnel, including von Braun, to advance their own missile and space programs. The V-2 thus became a crucial stepping stone in the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles and made human spaceflight possible. Number 34, the Boulton-Paul Defiant. Designed in the 1930s, the Boulton-Paul Defiant aimed to fulfill the Royal Air Force's specification for a turret fighter and had its maiden flight on August 11, 1937. Distinguished by its unconventional design, the Defiant was notable for lacking forward-firing armament, instead featuring a powered dorsal turret with 4 0.303-inch Browning machine guns. The Defiant initially achieved some success during the Battle of France and the early stages of the Battle of Britain, with German pilots mistaking the Defiant for the more conventional Hawker Hurricane. A fatal mistake against the Defiant's turret guns, the German pilots attacked from above and behind, later realizing their mistake and attacking from the front. The planes later found some success as night fighters and contributed to the defense of Britain during the Blitz, and they became highly effective against German bombers. While innovative, the Boulton-Paul Defiant was ultimately seen as a flawed approach to fighter design, yet its night fighting roles during the war ensure its place in aviation history. Number 33, the Wind Cannon. Designed to shoot a blast of compressed air and water vapour upwards at low-flying aircraft in an attempt to knock them out of the sky, this device was also known as the Wind Cannon. Designed by engineer Dr. Zippermeyer, the weapon consisted of a large combustion chamber connected to a barrel. The combustion of an explosive mixture of gases created a high-pressure shockwave that was channeled through the barrel, producing a blast of air to disrupt the flight of enemy aircraft. It was hoped that the powerful air blast would be strong enough to cause turbulence or even structural damage to planes flying at low altitudes. The weapon was found to be impractical for use against aircraft due to its limited range and the difficulty in accurately targeting fast-moving planes, and the cannon was never deployed in combat. Number 32, the Maginot Line. A famed defensive barrier built by France after World War I, the Maginot Line symbolises both strategic foresight and military miscalculation. Completed in the 1930s, it stretched along the French-German border, was fortified with bunkers, artillery and obstacles while being named after Minister of War André Maginot, aimed to deter German aggression by channeling invasions through Belgium, avoiding a direct assault. Its static nature proved futile when Germany circumvented it during World War II, using blitzkrieg tactics through the Ardennes forest. The failure of the Maginot Line was the main reason for the loss of France for the Allied powers, and to this day, some parts of the line remain for the world to see. Number 31, the Smith Gun. Designed by engineer Latham Valentine Stuart Blacker, the Smith gun was intended for use by the Home Guard, a volunteer defence force tasked with protecting the UK from potential German invasion. The Smith gun was a 3-inch smoothbore, breech-loading gun mounted on a 2-wheeled carriage and could fire a variety of projectiles, including high-explosive and anti-tank rounds. The gun's simple design allowed it to be produced quickly and cheaply while its wheels could be removed, allowing it to be dug into the ground for better stability and concealment. Its accuracy and range were inferior to more conventional artillery, and its ammunition was relatively weak against heavily armoured vehicles. Nonetheless, it provided a means of defence during a critical period and was a symbol of British ingenuity and determination. Number 30, the Nellie Trench Digging Machine. The Nellie Trench Digging Machine, officially known as the Cultivator No. 6, was a massive and ambitious British engineering project during World War II. It was conceived as a mechanised solution for quickly and safely digging trenches to protect troops and equipment. The project was spearheaded by Winston Churchill, who had a keen interest in innovative military technology and foresaw the potential benefits of such a machine for defensive of warfare. The machine itself was a huge tracked vehicle equipped with a rotating cutting head that could excavate soil to create trenches up to 5 meters deep and 2.7 meters wide. It was designed to be armoured, offering protection to the operators and allowing the machine to work under enemy fire. The concept behind Nellie was to dig fortified trenches ahead of advancing troops, providing them with immediate cover. Despite its impressive specifications and the substantial investment in its development, Nellie faced numerous technical challenges and practical limitations. It was slow, cumbersome, and required a flat, unobstructed terrain to operate effectively. Number 29. Kamikaze weapons. The most well-known kamikaze weapons were the aircraft used by pilots who carried out these suicide missions. These planes were often conventional fighter planes, dive bombers, or specially modified aircraft designed to maximize the damage inflicted. The aircraft would typically be loaded with explosives, bombs, or torpedoes, and would typically include the Mitsubishi A6M0, Yokosuka MEX Y7 Oka, and Nakajima Ki-43. Another Japanese fighter, the Ki-84 Hayate, saw use in these missions, particularly because of its high speed and agility. Other developed weapons included the Kaiten manned torpedoes or human-piloted suicide submarines, small Shinyo explosive motorboats, and the Fukuryu diver suicide attackers. Number 28. Soviet War Dogs. A unique and controversial military program developed by the Soviet Union during World War II. The War Dogs project aimed to train dogs, primarily for use against enemy tanks as part of the Soviet war effort. The Soviet military began exploring the use of dogs for military purposes as early as the 1920s, but it was during the 1930s and 1940s that the program saw significant development. The Soviet Army's Kennel Institute near Moscow played a crucial role in training these dogs, and they were initially trained to carry explosives on their backs and detonate them upon crawling under enemy tanks. The concept was that the dogs, trained to associate food with tanks, would run under German tanks on the battlefield, where a lever or contact fuse would trigger the explosive device upon contact. Eventually, the dogs carried dummy explosive packs and were conditioned to run under tanks, where the explosives would theoretically be detonated by a fuse or a lever mechanism. Despite its limited success, the Soviet War Dogs project remains a notable and infamous example of unconventional warfare methods employed during the war. The project highlights the lengths to which militaries have gone in desperate times and raises important ethical questions about the use of animals in warfare. Number 27. The Japanese War Balloons. The Fugo balloons were an attempt by Japan to retaliate against the United States for the Doolittle raid and to instill fear and cause damage within American territory. The project was conceived by the Imperial Japanese Army, which sought to use the high-altitude winds, the jet stream, to transport the balloons to North America. The balloons were made from lightweight materials, primarily paper treated with a lacquer to make them airtight and durable. They measured approximately 33 feet in diameter. Each balloon carried a payload of up to 36 small incendiary bombs or anti-personnel explosives, while being were equipped with a timed release mechanism to drop the bombs at certain intervals after a predetermined time in flight. The balloons had a sophisticated mechanism for maintaining altitude and were equipped with a barometric sensor that would release ballast, bags of sand, when the balloon descended too low, and vent hydrogen gas if it rose too high. This allowed them to maintain an altitude of around 30,000 feet, with over 9,000 balloons from the eastern coast of Honshu ascending to the stratosphere and catching the jet stream. About 300 of the balloons were reported to have reached North America, landing across a wide area, including the United and Canada, with the majority of them falling in remote areas, and many failed to cause significant damage. The most tragic incident occurred on May 5th, 1945, near Bly, Oregon. 6 civilians, including 5 children, were killed when a balloon bomb they discovered exploded. Number 26, the T-34 tank. The T-34 was developed in the late 1930s by the Kharkiv-Morozov Machine Building Design Bureau in Ukraine, and the Soviet Union sought to create a tank that combined firepower, protection and mobility, capable of operating in diverse and rugged terrain. The chief designer was Mikhail Koshkin, who was later replaced by Alexander Morozov due to Koshkin's untimely death, and the development process involved significant field testing and iterations, leading to a robust final design. The T-34 featured sloped armour, which provided better deflection of incoming shells and increased effective thickness. This innovation significantly enhanced the tank's survivability compared to its contemporaries. A critical component of the Soviet Red Army, it first saw major action during the initial stages of the German invasion, nicknamed Operation Barbarossa. Despite early setbacks, it soon demonstrated superiority over German tanks like the Panzer III and IV in terms of armour and firepower. The T-34 continued to serve in various forms for many years after World War II in numerous countries and in several conflicts, and its simple design made it a favourite for many nations seeking affordable and effective armoured vehicles. Number 25, the German Autobahn. The concept of the Autobahn dates back to the early 20th century, with the first true motorway known as the Avus opening in Berlin in 1921. The Autobahn network began to take shape in the 1930s under the Nazi regime, which saw the potential for such a network in both military logistics and civilian use. The regime significantly expanded the Autobahn project for propaganda purposes and as part of its economic and military policies. The construction provided employment during the Great Depression and was intended to demonstrate the technological prowess of Nazi Germany. The first major segment of the Autobahn connecting Frankfurt and Darmstadt was opened in 1935, with the network suffering major damage during World War II. One of the most distinctive features of the Autobahn is the lack of a general speed limit on many stretches. However, there are recommended speeds of 130 km per hour, and certain sections, especially those near urban areas, construction zones, or areas with higher accident rates, do have posted speed limits. Known for its high construction standards, most Autobahns have multiple lanes per direction, and its road surfaces are meticulously maintained to ensure smooth driving at high speeds. Number 24, the Yamato-class battleships. Built for the Imperial Japanese Navy during World War II, they were the heaviest and most powerfully armed battleships ever constructed. The class was named after the lead ship Yamato and included a second ship Musashi. A third Shinano was converted into an aircraft carrier during construction. The Yamato-class battleships were designed to counter the numerically superior battleships of the United States Navy. Japan anticipated a war in the Pacific and sought to ensure naval dominance by creating a class of ships that could overpower any adversary. The Yamato class featured the largest naval guns ever mounted on a battleship, arranged in 3 triple turrets, and these guns had an impressive range that could fire shells weighing up to 1,460 kilograms. Despite their size, these battleships could reach speeds of up to 27 knots thanks to their powerful steam turbine engines. They had a range of approximately 7,200 nautical miles at 16 knots, allowing them to operate across the vast distances of the Pacific Ocean. The Yamato-class battleships have become iconic symbols of the Imperial Japanese Navy's ambitions, even if some of the more advanced aircraft carriers have taken their place. Number 23, Mulberry Harbours. A remarkable engineering feat created during World War II to support the Allied invasion of Normandy, known as D-Day, Mulberry Harbours were partly inspired by earlier operations and discussions within the British Admiralty. These temporary portable harbours were essential for facilitating the rapid unloading of cargo onto the beaches during the Allied invasion, providing logistical support that was crucial for sustaining the invasion forces. The decision to construct Mulberry Harbours was made at the 1943 Quebec Conference, with the design and construction were overseen by British and American engineers and industrialists. The top-secret project consisted of several key components designed to create a sheltered area where ships could safely unload cargo, including Phoenix caissons, block ships, bombardons, and spud piers. The installation faced numerous challenges, including rough weather and the complexity of assembling large prefabricated structures under wartime conditions. The Mulberry Harbours are often hailed as one of the greatest logistical achievements of World War II and are responsible, in part, for the liberation of France. Number 22. Incendiary bats. During World War II, the United States developed an unconventional weapon known as the Incendiary Bats Project, or Project X-Ray. The plan involved attaching small incendiary devices to bats, which would be released over Japanese cities. The bats were expected to roost in buildings, igniting fires upon detonation. Initiated in 1942, the project saw limited testing with mixed results. While some tests demonstrated potential, the idea was ultimately deemed impractical due to logistical challenges and the development of the atomic bomb. The Incendiary Bat Project remains a curious example of innovative, albeit unsuccessful, wartime experimentation. Number 21. Japanese I-400 submarines. Also known as Sentoku class, the I-400 were a unique and ambitious class of submarine aircraft carriers developed by the Imperial Japanese Navy during World War II. These submarines were the largest submarines in the world at the time and remained so until the development of nuclear submarines in the 1960s. Designed to carry aircraft. Each submarine had a hangar that could house up to 3 Aichi M6A1 Seiran float planes, which could be launched via a catapult on the deck. Besides the aircraft, the I-400s were armed with torpedoes and anti-aircraft guns, including 8 533mm torpedo tubes and multiple deck guns. The submarines were part of a plan to attack the Panama Canal, intending to disrupt Allied shipping by blocking this crucial passage. However, the mission was never carried out due to Japan's deteriorating war situation. Captured by the US Navy at the end of the war, the US scuttled the submarines off the coast of Hawaii in 1946 to prevent the technology from falling into Soviet hands. Number 20. Ursel rocket U-boats. While not widely known or extensively developed, this conceptual German World War II idea was part of the broader German effort to innovate in submarine warfare. The idea of combining V1 and V2 rocket technology with submarines was part of a broader effort to create novel and potentially game-changing weapon systems. The idea was to allow a U-boat to surface, launch rockets at a target, and then quickly submerge before being detected and attacked. The rockets would be mounted in launch tubes on the deck of the submarine, allowing them to be fired while the submarine was on the surface. These rocket-armed U-boats could have been used for hit-and-run attacks on Allied shipping, yet the project did not advance to the point of seeing operational use. Number 19. Type 21 U-boats. Marking a significant advancement over earlier U-boat designs. The Type 21 represented a leap forward in submarine technology and heavily influenced post-war submarine design. Unlike previous U-boat designs, which were essentially surface ships that could submerge, the Type 21 was designed to operate primarily underwater. Its streamlined hull significantly reduced hydrodynamic drag, allowing it to achieve higher speeds while submerged. The Type 21 could reach speeds of up to 17.5 knots underwater, much faster than any other submarine of its time, and could achieve around 15.6 knots on the surface. Equipped with a large battery capacity, which allowed it to remain submerged for extended periods, up to 11 hours at 5 knots or several days at slower speeds. The Type 21 was armed with 6 forward torpedo tubes and could carry up to 23 torpedoes. Its advanced torpedo reloading system allowed all 6 tubes to be reloaded in less than 10 minutes, a much faster rate than previous U-boats. It also featured a sophisticated fire control system, enabling it to attack multiple targets simultaneously while submerged. Built using modular construction techniques, where sections of the submarine were prefabricated and then assembled in shipyards, this method was intended to speed up production. The Type 21 is often considered the first modern submarine, setting the standard for future designs. Number 18. Rubber tanks. Part of an elaborate deception strategy employed primarily by the Allies to mislead the Axis powers, rubber tanks were often used to confuse enemy aircraft and waste their valuable ammunition. The use of rubber tanks was part of broader military deception strategies collectively known as Operation Fortitude, which was itself a component of the larger Operation Bodyguard. The goal of these operations was to deceive the German High Command about the location, timing and strength of Allied military actions. Made from canvas or rubberized fabric, they were designed to resemble real tanks when viewed from a distance or from the air, were lightweight, easy to transport and could be quickly inflated or deflated. Rubber tanks were used in various theatres of the war, but they played a crucial role in the lead up to the D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944. The use of rubber tanks and other deception methods successfully misled the Germans about the location and timing of the D-Day invasion, leading them to hold significant forces in reserve at Pas-de-Calais, away from the actual landing sites in Normandy. Number 17. The Tallboy Bunker Buster Bomb. Also known as the Earthquake Bomb, this British deep penetration bomb was designed by Barnes-Wallis during World War II. The Tallboy was an exceptionally large bomb, measuring 21 feet in length and weighing approximately 12,000 pounds. Of this total weight, about 5,200 pounds was high explosive Torpex, a more powerful explosive mixture than TNT. Barnes-Wallis designed the Tallboy with an aerodynamic, streamlined shape which allowed it to achieve a high terminal velocity when dropped from great heights. This speed, combined with the bomb's weight, enabled it to penetrate deep into the earth or concrete before detonating. The bomb had a thick steel casing that allowed it to withstand the immense impact forces as it buried itself into the ground or target structure. The Tallboy was designed to penetrate up to 16 feet of concrete or 100 feet of earth. Upon detonation, the bomb created a massive underground explosion, causing shockwaves that would collapse tunnels, bunkers, or even entire buildings. The bomb was used in several notable missions, with Operation Catechism and the sinking of the German battleship Tirpitz counted as one of its most successful. Number 16. The Alpine Fortress. This proposed Nazi German secret base was said to be located in the mountainous regions of southern Germany, western Austria, and northern Italy. The idea was that this area could serve as a last-ditch stronghold for the Nazi regime, where they could continue to resist the Allies even after losing most of the territory in Germany. Propaganda suggested that the area was heavily fortified with bunkers, underground factories, and stockpiles of food and weapons. Rumours circulated that there were secret command centres, hidden airstrips, and the capability to house large numbers of troops. In reality, while some defensive measures were taken and there were efforts to build fortifications in the area, the concept of the Alpine Fortress was largely a psychological and propaganda tool rather than a fully realised military strategy. As the war drew to a close in April and May 1945, the Alpine Fortress never materialised as a serious defensive stronghold, but the remains of planning for the idea can still be seen in the Swiss hills today. Number 15. The Lorient U-Boat Base. A crucial German naval stronghold during World War II, the Lorient U-Boat Base, located in Brittany, France. Constructed by Nazi forces between 1941 and 1943, it became one of the largest U-boat pens, capable of housing dozens of submarines. The base was protected by massive bomb-resistant concrete structures, rendering it nearly impervious to Allied air raids. Lorient played a vital role in the Battle of the Atlantic, serving as a launch point for U-boat missions that targeted Allied shipping routes. Despite relentless Allied bombings that devastated the surrounding town, the fortress-like base survived and remains a historic reminder of wartime engineering. Number 14. The Enigma Machine. The Enigma Machine was an advanced cipher device used primarily by Nazi Germany during World War II to encode military communications. Invented by German engineer Arthur Scherbius in the 1920s, the machine employed a series of rotors and plug boards to create complex, constantly shifting encryption patterns. This made deciphering intercepted messages extremely difficult for the Allies. However, the groundbreaking work of British mathematician Alan Turing and his team at Bletchley Park cracked the Enigma's code, significantly aiding the Allied war effort. Their success shortened the war by providing crucial intelligence on German operations, showcasing the profound impact of cryptography and early computing had on situations during wartime. Number 13. Fugo Balloon Bomb. The Fugo Balloon Bomb was an innovative weapon developed by Japan during World War II. Launched in 1944 and 1945, these unmanned hydrogen-filled balloons were designed to drift across the Pacific Ocean on jet streams and deliver incendiary and anti-personnel bombs to North America. The goal was to cause widespread fires and panic. About 9,300 were launched, with an estimated 300 reaching US and Canadian shores. While the weapon caused minimal damage, it claimed 6 lives in Oregon when a group encountered an unexploded bomb. The Fugo campaign demonstrated Japan's attempts at long-range attacks, but had limited strategic impact. Number 12. The Grand Slam Bomb. Nicknamed the Earthquake Bomb, the Grand Slam was a colossal British weapon developed during World War II by engineer Barnes Wallis. Weighing 22,000 pounds, it was the largest conventional bomb used in the war. Designed to penetrate deep into the earth or fortified structures before detonation, the Grand Slam's explosion caused powerful shockwaves that could collapse foundations and destroy well-defended targets like bridges, viaducts and bunkers. First used in 1945, it played a crucial role in attacking German infrastructure, and its innovative design and devastating power marked a significant achievement in wartime ordnance technology. Number 11. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress was a groundbreaking American heavy bomber used extensively during World War II and the early Cold War period. Developed by Boeing, it was one of the most advanced aircraft of its time, featuring pressurized cabins, remote-controlled gun turrets, and a sophisticated fire control system. The B-29's range and payload capacity made it ideal for long-range bombing missions in the Pacific Theater. It is most famously known for carrying out the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, which played a pivotal role in ending World War II. The aircraft's engineering advancements also influenced future bomber and transport designs. Post-war B-29s were used in roles such as reconnaissance and as aerial tankers, and its legacy continued with subsequent bomber models such as the B-50 Superfortress and the iconic B-52 Stratofortress. Number 10. The America Bomber. The America Bomber was a strategic initiative by Nazi Germany during World War II aimed at developing a long-range bomber capable of reaching and striking the United States from Europe. Spearheaded by the Luftwaffe, the project reflected Hitler's vision of extending the war's reach beyond Europe to target cities like New York and Washington, D.C. Several German aircraft manufacturers, including Messerschmitt, Junkers and Heinkel, submitted proposals with designs featuring extreme range capabilities. Notable examples included the Messerschmitt Me 264 and the Junkers Ju 390, both conceived as transatlantic bombers. While prototypes like the Me 264 were built and tested, technical challenges and resource limitations, along with shifting priorities as the war turned against Germany, led to the project's cancellation before any operational flights. Number 9. The Vought V173 Flying Pancake. The Vought V173, commonly known as the Flying Pancake, was an experimental aircraft developed by the United States during World War II. Designed by Charles H. Zimmerman, it featured an unconventional, circular, disc-shaped wing that earned it its nickname. The aircraft aimed to achieve exceptional lift at low speeds and short takeoff and landing capabilities, making it well-suited for carrier operations. Constructed primarily of wood and powered by 2 piston engines driving large propellers, the V-173 had a unique futuristic appearance and exhibited remarkable stability and maneuverability in flight tests. projects. First flown in 1942, it proved capable of near-vertical takeoffs and high aerodynamic efficiency. Despite its promise, the V173 and its successor prototype, the larger Vought XF5U1, were ultimately sidelined due to the advent of jet propulsion technology and the complexities involved in refining the design. However, the Flying Pancake's innovative concepts influenced future developments in unconventional aircraft designs, showcasing the era's bold engineering spirit. The original V173 is preserved and displayed at the National Air and Space Museum, serving as a testament to experimental aviation. Number 8. The Silbervogel. German for silver bird, the Silbervogel was an ambitious rocket-powered suborbital spaceplane concept developed by Austrian aerospace engineer Eugen Zenger and mathematician Irene Brett in the late 1930s and early 1940s. The project was part of Nazi Germany's effort to create an ultra-long-range strategic bomber capable of reaching intercontinental targets, including the United States. The Silbervogel design featured a streamlined lifting body fuselage with a powerful rocket engine that would propel it along a suborbital trajectory. After reaching the edge of space, it would skip along the Earth's atmosphere in a series of controlled hops, using aerodynamic lift to maintain altitude and extend its range across vast distances. This innovative approach could theoretically allow the craft to travel halfway around the globe and return safely to a landing site. Despite its groundbreaking nature, the Silbervogel faced significant technical challenges that halted its development, including the immense heat generated during re-entry and the complexity of building a suitable propulsion system. Post-war analyses and developments in aerospace engineering acknowledged the concept's influence on future spaceplane and spacecraft projects. The idea of skipping re-entry later played a role in modern spacecraft re-entry methods and designs, laying foundational ideas for future orbital vehicle development. Number 7. The Führer Bunker. One of the more famous sites during World War II, the Führer Bunker was the famed secret bunker for the Axis leader during the war. Constructed in stages, it was part of a larger network of air raid shelters beneath the Reich Chancellery and was completed by 1944. The complex included two main sections, the Vorbunker, upper bunker, and the deeper Führer Bunker, which was more fortified and located 8.5 meters underground. The Führer Bunker was a reinforced concrete structure with walls up to 4 meters thick, designed to withstand heavy bombardment. It featured a series of interconnected rooms, including private quarters, meeting rooms, and facilities for key military and political figures. The conditions were cramped, and the atmosphere became increasingly dire inside as Allied forces closed in on Berlin. After the war, the bunker was largely sealed off and the surrounding area was redeveloped, yet today a small marker still provides historical context of what lies beneath a car park. Number 6. The Wolf's Lair. The Wolf's Lair, or Wolfschanze, was Adolf Hitler's primary military headquarters during much of World War II. Located deep in the Masurian woods of present-day Poland, near the town of Kętrzyn, it served as a top-secret bunker complex where Hitler directed key military operations, including the ill-fated invasion of the Soviet Union. The lair consisted of over 80 buildings, including bunkers, barracks, and air raid shelters, all fortified and camouflaged to prevent detection from the air. Construction began in 1940, and it quickly became one of the most heavily guarded sites in Nazi-occupied Europe. The complex remained active until January 1945, when it was abandoned as Soviet forces advanced. The Wolf's Lair is perhaps best known as the site of the failed July 20th, 1944 assassination attempt on Hitler by Klaus von Stauffenberg and other conspirators in Operation Valkyrie. The bomb detonated in a conference room but did not kill Hitler, though it severely injured several others. Today, the remnants of the Wolf's Lair are open to visitors, offering a somber reminder of its dark past and the destructive ambitions it once housed. Number 5. The Siegfried Line. The Siegfried Line, also known as the West Wall, was a massive line of German fortifications built along the country's western border, stretching from the Netherlands to Switzerland. Initially constructed in the 1930s under Hitler's direction, the line consisted of around 18,000 bunkers, tunnels, tank traps known as Dragon's Teeth, and other defensive structures designed to protect Germany from a potential Allied invasion from France. The Siegfried Line served as a propaganda symbol as well as a defensive position, illustrating Nazi Germany's supposed military strength and preparedness. Though it wasn't fully completed, its deterrent effect contributed to the British and French hesitation in attacking Germany early in the war, as the line posed a significant obstacle. However, by the time Allied forces advanced into Germany in 1944, parts of the Siegfried Line had fallen into disrepair. During the Allies' push into Germany in late 1944, the Siegfried Line became a fierce battleground, particularly during the Battle of Aachen and the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest, where American forces faced staunch German resistance. Today, remnants of the Siegfried Line are preserved as historical sites, symbolising both the defensive strategy of Nazi Germany and the intense fighting that marked the Allied invasion of Germany. Number 4. The Island Megafortress. The island megafortress concept in World War II refers to heavily fortified island bases built primarily by Japan and to some extent by the Allies in the Pacific theatre. These islands were strategically crucial as they controlled major supply and shipping routes and provided airfields for launching and defending against attacks across the Pacific. Japan built extensive fortifications on islands like Iwo Jima, Saipan, and Okinawa. These bases were designed to be nearly impregnable, with intricate networks of tunnels, bunkers, pillboxes, anti-aircraft emplacements, and artillery positions. The Japanese military fortified these islands to resist anticipated amphibious assaults and to create a defensive perimeter around Japan. Iwo Jima and Okinawa became infamous for their fierce battles, with Allied forces facing staunch resistance from Japanese soldiers deeply embedded in fortified positions. The defense of these islands was intended to delay Allied advances and inflict heavy casualties, discouraging further attacks. The Allies also established fortified bases on Pacific islands, such as Midway and Guadalcanal, turning them into hubs of military operations. The concept of the island megafortress in World War II highlights the strategic importance of islands in naval warfare and the intense fighting and fortification tactics that characterized the Pacific theatre. Number 3. The Mammoet Radar. The Mammoet radar was an advanced early warning radar system developed by Nazi Germany during World War II. Designed primarily to detect incoming Allied aircraft, it was part of a series of increasingly sophisticated radar installations that the German military deployed to improve air defense capabilities. The Mammoet radar was one of the first phased array radar systems, featuring a massive rectangular array of dipole antennas that allowed it to cover a wide area. The system had an impressive range, capable of detecting aircraft up to 300 kilometers away, depending on weather conditions and altitude. The radar's large multi-antenna array could be mounted on structures along Germany's Atlantic coastline or other strategically important locations. It provided early warnings that allowed German fighter forces to mobilize and engage Allied bombing raids, particularly those targeting German industrial regions. The Mammoet radar operated in conjunction with other German radar systems like the Würzburg and Freya radars, forming an integrated early warning network. This network was instrumental in Germany's air defense strategy, though it was eventually countered by Allied advancements in radar jamming and electronic warfare. Some remains of Mammoet radar installations can still be seen today, marking the technological advancements and defensive strategies employed by Germany during the war. Number 2. The Breitspurbahn. The Mammoet radar was an advanced early warning radar system developed by Nazi Germany during World War II. Proposed by Adolf Hitler and his engineers, it was intended to create a vast network of ultra-wide gauge railways that would span Europe and link German territories with occupied regions, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. The idea was part of Hitler's ambition to establish a greater Germanic empire with transportation infrastructure that could quickly mobilise resources, troops and civilian populations. The proposed track gauge for the Breitspurbahn was an immense 3 metres, more than double the standard European track gauge. This broad gauge would allow for massive train cars capable of transporting large numbers of passengers or significant quantities of cargo, including military vehicles, tanks and supplies. Engineers envisioned luxurious multi-level passenger cars that could include dining, sleeping and even entertainment sections. Though some initial designs and prototypes were made, the Breitspurbahn never moved past the planning stage, largely due to the logistical and resource constraints as the war turned against Germany. The system required extensive infrastructure investments and technical advancements that weren't feasible under wartime conditions. Today, the Breitspurbahn remains a symbol of the grand, unrealised ambitions of the Nazi regime and its vision for a Europe dominated by Germany. Number 1. The Land Cruiser P1000 Ratte. The Landkreuz P1000 Ratte was an ambitious German tank design concept during World War II, intended to be a land cruiser or super heavy tank on an almost unimaginable scale. Proposed by engineer Edward Grotte and endorsed by the German leadership, the Ratte was envisioned to weigh around 1,000 metric tons, over 20 times the weight of a Tiger tank, making it one of the largest tank designs ever considered. The Ratte was planned to be equipped with massive naval-grade weaponry, including a dual 280mm naval gun turret, similar to those found on battleships, and a secondary 128mm cannon, along with various anti-aircraft and machine gun emplacements for close-range defence. Measuring roughly 35 metres in length, the Ratte would have required a crew of over 20 men to operate, with room for ammunition storage, mechanical systems and engine spaces within its vast hull. However, the practical issues of the Ratte were immense. Its massive size and weight would have severely restricted its mobility, limiting it to very specific terrains, and it would have been nearly impossible to transport by rail. Additionally, it would have been highly vulnerable to air attacks due to its slow speed and enormous profile. Eventually, the project was deemed unfeasible and was cancelled by Albert Speer, Hitler's Minister of Armaments, before any prototypes were built. Thanks for watching this video on the top 50 secret World War II black projects. If you enjoyed it, check out another documentary on this page. Thanks for watching.